person go from being a fan, listening to the music on the radio, to performing it on stage?
For me, I listened to him a lot, in the bedroom, listening to the music and the words, and I just sang along with him until I kind of picked it up, and I never actually got the nerve to go out and do it in the public until, of course, after he passed away, and about 1989 is when I actually started performing live in front of an audience, So, it just got to get comfortable with it, you sing along with it, and there was a lot of other guys performing, and I was sitting out there watching. I just thought to myself, you know what? I believe I could do that too, and so that's what I did, and I got a real good response from it, and I just enjoyed it.
I've been a fan of Elvis since I was about 6 years old.
As a baby, I mean, my mom said that she would play his records, and if she played love songs, it would kind of rock me to sleep, and if she played fast songs, it would get my energy up. And so since I was a little boy, I've always recognized Elvis's voice. I was about not quite 3 when he passed away, and I can actually still remember that day because I remember my family, the reaction, especially from my mother, going, "Oh my God, Elvis is dead," and I think it just left an imprint on me. And I still remember as a little boy, I could have been more than 3 or 4, and hearing him overhead, like at a Kmart or something, and recognizing it was Elvis, and asked my mom, "Is that Elvis?" She goes, "Yeah, that's Elvis." She thought it was strange that I could recognize his voice more than anybody. And so since I was a little boy, I just loved Elvis, and I still do. I just, that hasn't gone away. In fact, the more I learn about him and his struggles, and his career, his ups and his downs, the more I'm just amazed by him. For someone to take on as much as he did, to work as hard as he did, it's just phenomenal. That's why he's still my hero.
Fan of Elvis ever since I was born, my whole life, ever since I can remember.
Yes, the first time I recall hearing Elvis, it was around Christmas time, and my dad played Blue Christmas on a cassette player, and I was hooked, and we played that until Valentine's Day, that Christmas tape, and then after that, we said, we got to get something else, get some regular music, so went on from there.
I've been a fan of Elvis since 1970, from when I first heard the song.
How did you first become an Elvis fan?
When I first started watching his movies, back in the early days when I was a kid, and that just inspired me to sing his movie songs. That's about all I do, though.
How you first became an Elvis fan?
Yeah, I first became an Elvis fan. My dad was playing a lot of Elvis records around the house, and I thought I could sing a little bit like him, so I researched him and fell in love with who he was.
I'm an Elvis fan since I'm 15 years old, so it's a long time ago. 18 years old. 18 years ago.
All my life, as far as I can remember. I got my first little record that I could play. My grandmother gave it to me. It was Hound Dog. I remember the Hound Dog part. I don't remember what the flip side was, but I just wore it out like crazy. I was about 3 or 4 years old.
I'm 6 years old. And the first time I ever heard him sing Crawfish from King Creole, I was hooked. I told my mother, "Ma, who's that guy?" She told me his name, and that was it. I wanted all that grease in my hair, and I was like Eddie Munster growing up, man. I just wanted to be Elvis,
When I was little, hearing music as I was growing up. My mom playing the music, just growing up.
First time I saw Elvis, I saw the movie Jailhouse Rock, actually, and I just thought he had cool hair, so, and immediately I knew I was connected to his music and to him as a person.
All my life, I'll be 53 in November, so I've been as long as I can remember Elvis. I was a Ricky Nelson fan at first, in my younger years, and they had a contest, popularity contest, who was the most popular, Elvis or Ricky Nelson. And of course I was pulling for Ricky Nelson, but Elvis won, because I never heard Elvis sing at the time. When I heard him sing, and I was hooked with Elvis, and we lost track of Ricky Nelson.
I've been an Elvis fan ever since I can remember. Probably the first time I really enjoyed Elvis music, I was about 5 years old.
I've been a fan for over 20 years anyway.
I've been a fan of Elvis ever since I was old enough to listen and appreciate music. So I'm probably about 8, 9 years old. My family played Jerry Lee Lewis and all the Sun recording artists in the house on old 45. So it's been quite a while.
I guess my dad, we were at a radio remote station, and they were doing a remote, and the guy, I was probably 5, 6, 7 years old maybe, and he asked me, he something that sounds like Elvis. It was actually a Conway Twitty record. And I remembered hearing his name. And so I asked Mom if she'd get me an Elvis record. So we went to the store and got a bunch of Elvis records, and that was it. And I saw him live in 1977 in Norman.
I was 10 years old, around 1977.
Ever since I toured the Wonderful Mansion, about 5 years, 6 years.
Gosh, since I was about 8 years old, I don't know how many years that is now, that would give away my age, and so that would be top secret. No, I've actually been a fan since 1968, I guess. So.
Well, I've been a fan of Elvis since I was 12 years old. That's been about 47 years.
Since the day I was born. I think I got my first album when I was 11. And I saw him at the International Hotel in Las Vegas when I was about 12.
Since I was about 10 years old, so give away my age, that's like 40 years.
I've been a fan since, I have to say since I was born. And I just decided this year to do an impersonation of Elvis. I just did a show last night, a 50-minute show for Images of the King here in Memphis. And I guess I got turned on for my mother when she had me, because she was a great Elvis fan.
I'm a fan of Elvis Presley since I was 3 years old. I'm 24, so about 21 years now.
Well, hi.
Hi. You had a great voice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We were at the drive-in. You're probably too young to remember drive-ins, but we were at the drive-in, and I was, like I say, about 7 years old. And you know, they always showed, like they do now, they showed previews before the movie. And my brother and I were sitting in the back seat, you know, eating popcorn or whatever, you know, because the movie hadn't started yet, and we were just previews on. Well, you know, in those days, you know, bikinis were a new thing, you know, and some people didn't approve of all that skin being shown or whatever. And evidently there was a preview for an Elvis Presley movie going on the screen, and of course I was paying no attention to it whatsoever. And my mother told my dad, she says, "Oh, that Elvis Presley, he's so nasty." And of course, 7-year-old kid hears nasty, and he's like, "What?" And I said, "What? What are you talking about?" And my mom just says, "Just sit back, nothing." But something was ingrained in my head that there was something about Elvis Presley that I had to know. You know, what is this thing about you know, Elvis Presley? So it was several years later. My folks had to go somewhere, and I was staying home to watch my little brother and sister. And it was the first time I was going to get a chance. There was an Elvis movie going to be on, and it was the first time I would be my first chance to actually see one. And I thought, folks are going to be gone. I'm going to watch this bad movie, you know, and see what it is that's so bad about Elvis Presley. And of course, really loved it. You know, it's just most of his movies. You know, you look back on them now, and it's very they were very tame. You know, compared to it. People were in bikinis and stuff, but it was just all very innocent. And then, of course, like I say, in '73, that was in the late '60s. Then in '73, when Aloha from Hawaii was on, that was it. I mean, you know, I was hooked. So.
Elvis fan, I just grew up with it in the house and having the atmosphere. So just watching the movies and everything.
What about it? What is it about Elvis that attracts you to him?
Charisma, how he was himself on stage, and it was something different, which he was actually knocked at first, being Elvis the Pelvis, and then kind of caught on more and more, just by being himself.
Oh guys, I've been an Elvis fan since I was a little boy. My mom raised me up right. She loved Elvis, and I think the first time that I ever heard "Don't Be Cruel," I was hooked.
Everything became just, it's not a dream of me that to perform Elvis. The things happen naturally. And I started when I asked it to my mom to give me the black leather suit of '68 Special. And she gave me this gift, and I put it on, and they just make a surprise for me and put me on stage. I don't know that this is going to happen. And
1957, when I was 7 years of age, I was born in Cork City in Ireland. We moved to a place called Mallow, and I saw my first Elvis Presley film there called Jailhouse Rock. And they wouldn't let me in first, but my mother persuaded them to get me in. And then on I was an Elvis fan. And my favourite Elvis record at that time was I Need You So. One of my favourites, Blueberry Hill, Young and Beautiful, and Jailhouse Rock. And then it rolled on from there.
Elvis for as long as I can remember. So I'm not a victim. I'm lucky enough to be brought up on my mum's records. So
probably when I was about 6 years old, and my older brother was playing in a rock and roll band, and he was doing a little Elvis and Ricky and all that. And actually, I heard my brother sing Elvis songs before I really knew who Elvis was. But then later after that, I saw him on television, and of course, the rest is history.
Fan, that's a difficult question. I mean, I've always been very aware of Elvis since a young child. My dad used to play it in the car, and it's just grown on me, through the years. And I never wanted to admit to him that I liked Elvis, because it wasn't cool. And he'd leave a tape lying around the house, and I'd listen to that, and I'd hear songs like American Trilogy, Unchained Melody, and it would just blow me away, And so I suppose I can't really put a point on when I've been a fan, but I love Elvis, that's all that matters.
It would have been back in the 60s. I started collecting his records and magazines, books, and things like that.
And it's just one of those things where it just makes you, it's a reason he's the king. And it taught me a lot about music and where I wanted to go with my music. It opened new doors for me. Like I said, it made me a better musician and appreciate more different types of music. Now I listen to everything. And but I'm still a hard rock and roll blues player. Big time steeped in the blues. Love the blues.
I would say that I've always known about Elvis. I can't even remember when he died. So I was about 10 or 11 or 12 when he died. So probably between 12 and on. And I'm not going to tell you how old I am, so you can't figure it out. Long time.
Oh, Lord. Probably since I was about 6, because that's probably about the first time that I came to Elvis Week, actually. And my mom's been a huge Elvis fan for as long as I can remember, and she basically introduced me to it. And I've been coming since I was.
In 2013, I went to Memphis and saw the Elvis ETAs in Graceland, and I said this is what I want to do, and I've done it ever since.
What is it about Elvis that drew you to him?
His personality and the way he moves, and I liked his clothes.
Probably since I was just all my life, really.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say the very first. My dad was a big Elvis fan, so we always had Elvis music around the house. And the very first song I remember hearing as a child was "Devil in Disguise," and that's what kind of got me started.
There's so much about the man. It kind of all, it all draws you to him. His generous heart, his family ties. How family comes first. How many rock stars would make a success out of themselves and move their mother and their father and their grandmother into the house with them?
3 or 4 years I've been a fan, probably since I was about 14 years old.
First became an Elvis fan through my dad. My dad's been doing Elvis for a long, long time. I started off as his scarf guy. I was pretty much his Charlie Hodge. And we started touring the cities and doing the contests, and I kind of got hooked after a couple of contests, and I decided that I wanted to take over and do it myself.
This is a biggie because in 1977, right after Elvis had passed away, I met my now husband, Jerry Russell, and in the process of us dating for 3 years and him courting me, he used to sing to me a lot, and it got me to liking Elvis quite a lot. He introduced me to Elvis. I mean, I already knew about Elvis, but I didn't know as much. And when he proposed to me, he actually got down on his knee and he sang The Wonder of You, and that tied me in. I've been a fan ever since.
I've been a fan since I was 11 years of age.
I became an Elvis fan in 1977. My mother already was an Elvis fan from her youth. And when he died, she bought a lot of records, and we went to the theater to see his movies. Actually, the day after he died, I saw Elvis at the Raiders, and I was 9 years old. And from then on, I became a fan.
I became an Elvis fan when I was about 12 years old. I was watching the movies. They used to play the movies on Saturday morning TV in London, in England. And I first got into Elvis watching the movies. I loved the movies. The music was fun. The films were easy and just enjoyable. And I grew up watching movies, and that's why I love the Elvis movies so much, because it reminds me of my childhood.
Elvis, as long as I can remember, probably since about 5-6 years of age.
Andy Severchek from Wind Gap, Pennsylvania.
How did you first become an Elvis fan?
I grew up as a little boy, just listening to my grandmother's collection of Elvis records, and just fell in love with it, from the time I was a little boy.
Tell me how you first became an Elvis fan.
Well, my dad was a big Elvis fan, all home, and everything, and I was watching the movie Jailhouse Rock, and my dad, he was like overwhelmed about Elvis, and I liked how he moved his legs, his charisma and everything. And so one day I got up and started doing that, and went to a festival about 30 minutes away from where I live. And from then to now is how the Elvis thing got started and everything, how I became an Elvis fan.
My name is Ben Thompson and I'm from London, England.
How did you first become an Elvis fan?
My mum and dad raised me with the music. When I was 8 years old, I think I watched Love Me Tender.
My name is Bill Reinhardt. I'm from Coldwater, Mississippi, originally Chicago.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you first became an Elvis fan?
I became an Elvis fan just by watching the movies when I was a young man. And growing up watching him, he had all the moves and all the chicks.
How did you first become a fan of Elvis Presley's?
Well, my grandparents grew up that era and they always listened to Elvis Channel on Sirius XM, so I grew up with the music basically. They played it all the time, so I just started singing it and grandma.
Well, I just remember back in the 70s, I am 55 years young, so when the music that I really enjoyed was sort of upbeat. My mother was a big Elvis fan, so she had all the old albums. When Elvis appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, she would come home and watch it on television. She wasn't ever able to attend, up at New York City or any of the big places, but I would listen to her little 45s, and I just really enjoy the music because it's upbeat. I call Elvis the king of all music, and so I've just always loved it. He's brought me through a lot of tough times. Elvis and I had one thing in common. Elvis had glaucoma. Well, I have retinitis pigmentosa, so we saw the same eye doctor. Of course, I saw him a lot later in life, and so I just think Elvis has brought a lot of happiness to people. I've just been a fan. I love all the songs, from the movie songs to the songs I was able to perform today, the gospel songs. And I want to put a smile on people's face. I think when Elvis performed, he gave it his all, and he wanted to do the very best and entertain the audience. So me being totally blind, I don't do all the moves because I can't watch the videos, but I try to do my best to pay tribute to him. I'm not Elvis. There's only one Elvis. And he's passed away, but I've been a fan my whole entire life. I have albums in my house. I have my house decorated with the Elvis memorabilia, and I listen to Sirius Radio all the time, and I hope during this trip to get to go to Sirius Radio.
Elvis when I was 4 years old. My auntie got me into it. She was looking after me one day and it was raining outside, so she made me sit down and watch a film, and it was King Creole. And that's how I became an Elvis fan.
First time I became an Elvis fan, I saw Elvis in Turner Classic Movies. And first thing I thought, man, great hair. And he became a huge impact on my life. And I just love the way, how when he sang a song, everybody always felt like he was singing to them and stuff like that. So I was just hooked at 6 years old on Turner Classic Movies.
I was probably 2 years old when my dad was a big fan, and I kind of grew up with Elvis. And after I saw him in 1976 in Florida, I was 7 years old, and that was the end. I was an immediate fan.
Well, I was a fan all my life. I watched his movies and, watched his concerts on TV. I guess I'm becoming a big fan when I started doing the Elvis, I guess about 7 years ago.
All my life. I can't remember a time I haven't been an Elvis fan.
In about 1957, saw him on TV after some show, and he did a little hound dog, and I said, Mom, got to get in here and check it out, because I never saw anybody move like that. And that's about how it all happened.
Yeah, I was an Elvis fan from being a child. I used to listen to my dad's records when I was a kid.
and it just grew from there. My uncle was in bands in the 60s and the 70s back in England, and he sort of influenced me and encouraged me to do something about it, and that's how I became an ETA.
Elvis came into my life when I was a teenager. I kind of heard him a lot around, and I was seeing a lot of stuff on television. And I just started out as a part-time chef. And one particular night I got home on a weekend, and there was like 3 or 4 movies of Elvis playing over the weekend, and I happened to walk in on one called Loving You. And I'd never seen the likes of a guy like this before. He had the jean jacket and the swish black hair and all that, and he had a guitar. And I said, "Wow, this guy's pretty cool." And because my mother came in, and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm watching." "Who's this guy?" She said, "It's Elvis Presley." I said, "Who?" She said, "Elvis Presley." I was only about 16. I said, "Wow, this guy's cool." Of course, I made sure that I got home the next night to watch the next movie, which was, I think it was King Creole or something like that. Man, that was it. My first wage that I got as a part-time chef. I went out and bought every Elvis album that was available in my local music store, which was not very many, living in a small country town in the North Island of New Zealand. In fact, I got the basics, everything from Can't Help Falling in Love to A Fool Such As I, to all that, but none of the 70s stuff. It was just the basic stuff. And when I got a little bit more money, I picked up extra albums and all that, which was the movie soundtracks. I was thrilled by, as I said, Loving You and King Creole, but the only soundtracks that were available in New Zealand back in the early 70s was stuff like Blue Hawaii, GI Blues, King Creole, that type of thing. Elvis is back, 50 million fans can't be wrong, that type of thing. So what little money that I had, I didn't spend on gas or clothes or anything. I just bought Elvis records. And I didn't go out at all. I mean, I had no interest in girls back then because there weren't any in our local town anyway. And I was just absolutely mesmerized by the sound of this guy, that he had so many different sounds. And I was already involved in stage work at school and all that. In fact, character acting was my specialty. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be neat if I, could sound a little bit like Elvis Presley, probably get me a little bit more publicity in show business and all that type of thing. So I started, practicing, the thank you very much and hi baby and all that type of thing. Just tried to master the craft. A little girl started working at work when I became a chef apprentice. And lo and behold, when I go to the staff room, here she is playing a cassette of Elvis Presley. And he was singing Don't Be Cruel. And I said, hey, I know that song. And she says, yeah, but you can't sing like him. And I was really head over heels over this girl. It was probably my first love. And she said, well, put it this way. She says, I'll only go out with you if you can sound like that. I said, you got yourself a deal. So part of my courtship and part of my homework, beside the cooking and all that type of thing, was to go home and study Elvis Presley. Study his moves, study his sounds, study his voice, everything about him. Well, anyhow, that was a long time in the making. It was about a year and a half. By the time I had started my journey with Elvis Presley, this girl had long moved on. I'd completely forgotten about her. And I met up with her many, many years later, and she was like 400 pounds heavier and getting married. And I said, wow, you've changed. And she says, yeah. She says, I'm getting married. And I said, congratulations. And I said, you know, I said, I did what you asked me to do. And she said, what was that? And I said, I went out and tried to sound like Elvis, just so I could, you know, crack onto you type of thing. I said, but funny thing is, I said, Elvis became the most important thing in my life back when I was 16 years old, because that particular year at Christmas time I lost my 14-year-old brother to meningitis, and so Elvis was my biggest escape.
My grandmother got me into Elvis, and I was raised around the older folk, 50s and 60s, and Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin and stuff, and I got hooked on Elvis Presley. My grandmother listened to him quite a bit.
When I was about 3 years old, my mom and my mom's best friend took me to see David Lee, which is an Elvis tribute artist, and he let me dance with him on stage. And ever since then, I was asking about Elvis and started watching Elvis's videos.
Ever since